So, historical rupture. Remember, when last we left the Abbasid Empire, they're still existing, but their power, their authority, the land they control, it's Abbasid, by reputation, by name, but their power is actually very, very small. Still centered in Baghdad. And the city they built there was incredible. Based on ancient Near Eastern city plans, it was a circular city with gates to the four directions, palace in the center, similar to how, the ancient cities would have been built, where the Ishtar Gate was one of these gates, and an incredible center. It was known as the House of Wisdom because in this medieval period, the Abbasids invited scholars from all over the empire and other places too, scientists and scholars from India who weren't part of the Islamic Empire, Africa. They invited them all to converge there, to teach, to read together, to learn from each other. There was a great scriptorium where books on science and literature were translated. This was like the Alexandrian Library. And so the whole city was called the House of Wisdom, but certainly this library. So this was, in the Dark Ages, the great repository of light. And it still existed in Baghdad until 1258, because something really big happened. Something unexpected. Can I make a Donald Trump joke? Maybe I shouldn't. But coming out of nowhere is this. These little clans, nomadic tribesmen on their horses in the remotest area of China, uncivilized, beyond the wall. What could they possibly do to the Abbasid Empire, to Europe, to what became Russia, and what became modern Iran? What impact could they possibly have? Well, obviously huge. This is the Mongol Empire that is established as Genghis Khan leads his nomadic armies across the Silk Route into West Asia, and his children will each be assigned a region and his grandchildren that they will rule. So descended from him, they establish a Khanate, a branch of the Khan Empire. Khan is the great ruler. Khanate is one of the branches of the empire. So one in China, when they take over the capital of China, overthrow the northern Song dynasty, that becomes the Yuan dynasty. They take Russia. This is known as the Golden Horde. And Chagatai becomes this area up here in Central Asia. And the fourth one, the little one, Ilkhanate, it means little Khan. The littlest piece of this is established by a grandson of Genghis Khan in Iran. But they're not just done there. They keep pushing and pushing their way around the 1250s west into Turkey, and this line stops at Baghdad. So 1258, the Mongol armies invade the city, break through the walls, and they destroy it. House of Wisdom is gone. And look how far they got into Europe. And the only reason they didn't go further into India, they don't like the climate. Too hot. They need prairie land for those horses and their herds to graze on. So here they are, and we even have portraits of them. Kublai Khan, and probably posthumous of Genghis Khan, from a very famous portrait artist who was Nepali, who went north up on the Silk Road into Tibet, and they got hired to go to the capital in China and serve as a court painter for the emperor. And so we have these very rare paintings of Kublai Khan and Genghis Khan. Again, that one's probably posthumous, but some idea of what they looked like on their horses, their garments. Kublai Khan is, I think, the grandson. And I did have a family tree, and I think I took it out, but I think he's the grandson of Genghis Khan. So here it is. You think the Abbasids were big. I don't know. For a while, this looks bigger. And, you know, you think of Rome being big. This is bigger.
It's more than 12 million square miles of land that they control. The largest land empire the world has ever known. The only one that surpasses it is the British, but that was more water-based.
Definitely. Definitely. Great. Thank you.
Say it one more time. It was so impressive.
12 million square miles.
I want that. I hope that got on the recording. Yeah, talk very loud. So we're just, in this class, we're focusing here. When you do the East Asia section, you could talk about those lovely, you could talk about the Sung, and then you just tell people, and then it all went to hell. And then you show them those pretty David vases. And that's actually, we wouldn't have blue and white porcelain if it wasn't for the Mongols. Because decorating the porcelain like that, that's, you know, painting on white porcelain, that's so West Asian, that's so low class to the Chinese. They did the beautiful Sung celadons, the little soft green, or a black and a white, just beautiful aesthetic objects. It's just so cheap to paint these big designs on white porcelain. And the Mongols thought, God, this is great. Look how good this looks. And it's because of them that took off. And then they shipped it across the Silk Road. And that's how we'll see how it ends up here, probably how it ends up here. So if you were traveling during the Mongol, this great expansive empire, you know, in order to get around, you had to have a passport. So this is actually a Mongol passport. By the strength of the eternal heaven and edict of the emperor, Khan, he who hath no respect shall be guilty. In other words, protect the wearer, the bearer of this passport. Marco Polo was issued one of these and wore it during his travels in China. And so everybody thinks, and rightly so, because, you know, when the Mongols came, whole cities, populations fled in terror in front of them. You knew they were coming. So no, I'm not trying to minimize the devastation. But what happened afterwards is impressive, and that's what we're interested in. Pax Mongolia, a peace like the Roman Pax. This time of peace in this unified empire. Increased trade, access between China and West Asia. Religious tolerance. In fact, the Mongol court was incredibly cosmopolitan. They invited Christians. They invited Muslims, different types of Indian practitioners, Buddhists, all to the court. Genghis Khan and his kids, they were actually animists, worshiping a sacred mountain and sacred places in the landscape where the spirit was. But that's not what they would make their state religions in the different khanates. And so there was a lot of interest in religion. There's an interest in the local culture that you just took over, and we'll get to that. And new art styles develop under the Mongols because of this incredible kind of cross-pollination. So here's the capital of the Little Khan. It's now an archaeological site, mostly ruined, but this was the city they founded in northwest Iran to make their capital. Takhti Suleiman, their summer capital, where they were based in the 13th and 14th centuries. Not much exists today. There was a beautiful lake there. I think there's a story about the lake, like it's a meteor or something. There's something interesting about the formation of this lake. Great source of water, wonderful grazing land, perfect, out in the outdoors. And what we do find, and you'll find in art museums from Takhti Suleiman, are these incredible tiles which would have decorated the walls of the buildings. And so these are lusterware, so they're painted with a metallic glaze, so they're usually copper and white, and then cobalt, often with inscriptions or decoration. And you can just see from these, we're seeing some cross-pollination. Look at this phoenix-like bird and these little mushroom-like clouds. Do any of you know where that comes from? Chinese. Because, you know, if you controlled the Silk Road and you were moving your armies and your population back and forth to China, you'd pack stuff. They brought textiles with them wherever they went. They brought scrolls, Chinese scroll paintings. They brought things like decorative objects like cinnabar boxes and things that are carved. And so they had access to the most, I guess, contemporary as well as older kind of Chinese art. And they traveled with it.